It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited today because I am visiting the Museum of Native American History. I am sitting across from Charlotte Buchanan-Yale, who is the director of the museum, and she is a busy lady. She has the sharpest sneakers on in the world that I absolutely love when I saw them, and they're emblematic of the kind of work that she's doing because she's here, there, and everywhere. So in a flash, she took some time out of her busy schedule to sit down with me. And I got to tell you, folks, the only reason why we're sitting down here now is because a couple of weeks ago, my youngest son, who goes to the Arts Academy, big shout out to the Arkansas Arts Academy in Rogers, they came here to the Museum of Native American History for a tour. And I was like, oh, I really want to go because I remember driving by it in Bentonville. And, you know, I saw it from the outside and I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I guess in my mind, when I think of museums around here, or at least we think of museums, we think of Crystal Bridges because it's so opulent and just so above. I mean, it's above reproach. And we've had Crystal Bridges on the podcast, but I got to tell you, folks, I walked into this museum and I walked out a changed person. As a history major in college, I can appreciate research and I can appreciate knowing your history and the importance of knowing every aspect of your history. But I got to say, when you go into the Native American History Museum here in Bentonville, you will walk out with a newfound respect and a newfound understanding for this area and for what it represents historically, as well as where it's going, right? Because you know what they say, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And so without further ado, Charlotte Buchanan-Yale, how are you doing today?
I am so excited to do this with you. I mean, everything you just said, I mean, I could probably talk to you till the bison come home. And so let's just see where this goes today.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And we're going to have a ton of Native American references in this podcast. So folks, don't take it the wrong way. We're embracing the culture that is this area in Northwest Arkansas. And if you live here, you need to understand what here is. And I think it's really important. As I used to say back in the day, you know, the gateway to the West was St. Louis, and we're like 5 hours west of there. So this was like the Wild, Wild West. This was a much different area, you know, over 150, 160 years ago, and even beyond that. But why don't you just tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you actually got here to the museum?
Well, you know, we're talking, I grew up in, you know, where we live is pretty amazing. You're talking about St. Louis. I mean, when I moved here and when you moved here, people were thinking, what? You know, Arkansas, and
right.
Their mouths become oscilloscopes. But we're in the catbird seat of history. We're close to Kansas City. We're close to St. Louis. We're close to Dallas. We're close to 39 nations in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And it's just really an exciting area because we are kind of the gateway sitting in the middle of everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
People say, how did you get here? I mean, I moved to Arkansas. My mother was born in Little Rock at the turn of the last century. So the blood of the mother must course through me. But they somehow migrated to Texas. So I grew up as a Dallas Texan. Stars at night are big and bright. Anyway,
deep in the heart
of Texas. But I digress. Anyway, I moved to the Northwest for 25 years. And how did I get here? I say spirit brought me here. You can watch your life, you know, in spirals, how it kind of brings you to the day, or Coyote keeps running that same playbook by you to see if you got the message or not.
Yeah.
And one thing we have at the museum, and I think it stands out, is the winter count. It's called Lone Dog's Winter Count. It's the most extraordinary teaching tool because it is on a bison hide. And what is a winter count? A winter count is when things have kind of slowed down and you're hearing your elders tell those oral histories over and over again, you know, to lock in who you are and where you've been and where you may be going.
Right.
And it always starts in the middle in a spiral. And so that's, I think, well, how true that is, how I became the director of the Museum of Native American History. And I'm not even going to go down that road with you today.
Right.
But it is my true honor to take everything I learned in the first half of my life and give everything I've got to this museum because it is just my honor to join hands with David Bogle, who created it. I mean, this man's vision is so extraordinary and so surprising to people that come through those great doors, because you think, well, I'll be out of here in 25 minutes in this little regional museum.
I didn't want to leave when I came.
No.
I really didn't. The only reason I left was because they were on a time limit. It was the last day before the Thanksgiving break.
You can't see it on a field trip. It's like a artist's opening.
Yeah.
You can't see the art. I mean, everybody's drinking cheap wine and bad cheese. And so you need to come back. And that's what we try to do, is plant that seed that you come back over and over and over again. And what I love doing is that David's vision is that he takes you on a tour through 5 periods of Native American history, from the Paleo period to the European influence. And in that time, that 16,000 time frame, we are dedicated to the diversity of culture of the first people from all the Americas, South America, Central America, Mexico, up to Alaska, over to the Antilles. And then we tell the story of the present through cultural leaders, Native American cultural leaders that come through those doors. It could be Wes Studi before he gets an Academy Award, which was pretty fabulous. Right. Or it's artists, it's author events. It is artists teaching creative visions, where you learn the tradition and history behind. And then we go farther, and also the Earth Guardian movement. They were now an official Earth Guardian museum. And then that parlays into the future where you brought and you're on the field trip, where we want to educate the next generation about our collective history.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, gosh, there's so many different directions. I think that the day that we were there at the museum, there was also a small group of kids that I think were from an Indian.
They were from Stillwell.
Yeah, right, exactly. And Stillwell, Oklahoma.
Yes, and that was really great because they're older kids. And, I trained to be a Montessori teacher, so I just used that training on big people. But, your older kids with the younger kids that were there. And I thought, we just make it work. I mean, the time schedule got really crackers.
Yeah.
But
it was fine. It was totally
everybody
fine.
Was, to have literally 120 kids in this little museum is ridiculously wonderful, because they were so well behaved.
Yeah, they were. They really, I was impressed. Actually, a grandmother came on this trip, on that particular field trip, and we were talking, and her daughter and my son are in the same class, and we were remarking about how I think there were 4 classes from Arts Academy that came, and about almost 100 kids.
Yeah.
And they were very good.
That's because Aaron Jones rules with a steel fist.
Right.
He's like,
so yeah, no. They were definitely really good. And we you mentioned a couple of things that stood out to me, which was that circular, what do you call it again?
It's a winter count.
Winter count.
There's only about 100 known, and the museum has 2, and we sometimes have 3.
So I watched one of their teachers, and I can't remember his name. He gave the lesson in that
Aaron.
room. Okay, that was him. So big shout out to him. Thank you so much for that lesson. I just stood there as he started going through and identifying each year and the significance of each year. And when you see this calendar, just imagine in your mind a spiral, a line that just continues to spiral out from the center. And
for 70 years.
For 70 years. And each year has a representation of an image. And there's a story behind that. And, like you talked about, the storytellers and the oral history. It's so important. I mean, a lot of us those that are listening to this podcast, you've probably had stories told to you by your grandparents or by your parents or somebody close to you that has relayed a story. And over the years, it's taken on life and it's taken on new meaning. And I think storytelling is important.
Storytelling is the lifeblood of all of us. I mean, it's so important. And what's great about the winter count is that when you're sitting around the campfire, it's called a winter count because it begins with the first snow, especially in the Dakotas, which would have been October, maybe to March.
Right.
And so you're hearing these stories, the death of a chief, the excitement of stealing 800 horses, from the Crow Nation, the celebrations and all that. Well, the tribal counts would come together and decide what was the most exciting, important thing that happened. So Lone Dog, or the keeper of that winter count, would make one glyph. And if we all had a little winter count, and a lot of times we do that with the kids, we'll take a little craft paper and make a little winter count where they could start, and make their own glyph of the most important thing that happened in their life. But especially for the kids that came through from Arkansas Arts Academy, if they're a writer, we have a key that tells you that whether it was a Leonid meteor shower where the stars fell all night,
Right.
where you thought maybe the world is ending. You don't know the wonder that's attached to that. You can extrapolate that into a play. You can learn more about the death of who was that chief. You can learn more about, some of these extraordinary events. And we want people to fall through time and learn more.
Yeah. No,
history's
absolutely.
exciting. History's imagination.
It is.
Especially if you go through once and you go through twice, but if you can find your favorite thing and sit before it for an hour, let it speak to you. Imagine, this woman that made beaded that cradle board. That's her story.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
It is. And now you have me thinking, I'm like, man, maybe I should go home and we could do a winter count over the holidays with my kids where, they're all young. They're 14, 13, and 9 at the time of the recording of this podcast. But I think it's good for all of us, myself included, to reflect on the important things that happen in our lives and maybe even try to distill down to one, particular instance.
That's an incredible family thing to hand down, and I love that because one thing I try to plant a seed when kids come in, and just history starts at home.
Yeah. Don't
be like me and a million other people that you think, I didn't even ask my Aunt Isabel what her maiden name is.
Right.
So start now interviewing your parents and your grandparents because it saves a lot of wear and tear later.
Yeah, and I'm gonna share a hack with everybody here. I actually and I've slowly been sharing a little bit of my personal history on this podcast from time to time. And those of you that listen on a regular basis always come to me and say, "Well, I didn't know that about you," or "That was interesting to learn." But I just recently lost a great aunt that was 105.
Wow.
And I lost another aunt that was 99.
Wow.
And they were in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where a lot of my family is from. But I would always make it a point to go back and meet with them. And I would record my conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the holidays are coming up at the time that we're recording this. And I would certainly encourage those listening that when you're around some of your elders and some of the older people in your family that have that oral history down and have those stories just embedded in their brain, record them.
Yes.
And listen to them.
Yes.
Because they are part of your identity and it's part of the storytelling that you need to pass down to your significant other, your kids, or whoever comes after you.
I think, I love this conversation with you because I'm telling you that it is so healing and it is the greatest treasure in the world. And, when my Uncle Harry passed, I encouraged him to tell a story and he recorded them on these little cassettes. And I think we made them to DVDs or something like that.
Right.
But to hear him being so funny, it is the greatest treasure. I don't think there's anything you can buy that would be better than that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And especially in this day and age when we're so caught up in consumerism, this is a nice thing to embrace.
That is the present. That's the gift.
And it doesn't cost a dime.
No.
It really doesn't.
No.
It's free. It's free. So take that for what it's worth, listeners. I think you'll enjoy it. I'd love to hear some stories of how the difference making of some storytelling in your family helped you after this holiday period. So please reach out here at I Am Northwest Arkansas and let us know. So, Ms. Buchanan-Yale, back to the museum. Obviously, you guys, you originally started out in a smaller location, and then you had such a collection. And most of it was Mr. Bogle's collection?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then did other people give to him, or how did this collection continue to grow?
When people walk in the door, you're greeted by a 12,000-year-old woolly mammoth.
Right, which is amazing.
It's amazing.
It is.
The woolly mammoth's name's Tusker, and it was named we had a naming contest, and it was a perfect 9-year-old boy came up with Tusker. But there's an ode to Mr. Bogle's Eagle Scout leader that inspired him to be passionate about history and collecting, Mr. Fryer.
Okay.
And actually his widow was in just last week, Juanita Fryer. And David outgrew his home. He outgrew a tiny little museum on the square, and then he brought us to where we are today. And it was just a house.
Right.
We're just, it's just a little house that has been attacked many which ways, to be the museum it is today. And he brought in Marlon Blackwell, who worked with Fay Jones.
A great architect.
And who worked with Frank Lloyd Wright.
Sure.
And they created the Great Doors. So that's why it looks like such a cathedral when you come in. But then David, the story he was going to tell is pretty extraordinary. Really, when you think about all the Americas and all the different cultures, and just recognized tribes right now in just the United States alone, federal is 575, but there's many more, from there. So with that, he bought 5 very prestigious collections. And then from there, people love what he does. They trust what he does. David's heritage is Cherokee, even though we represent no one nation or tribe.
Right.
We've had a generous donation from the Blairs of pre-Columbian art. We have Dr. Howard and Catherine Cockrell of Little Rock, who's extraordinary tapestry collection that changes. They just changed it out last week.
Okay.
So we never know when someone might lend their collection, but we don't bring something in just because it's available. It's got to give you a greater window to how the first people lived.
So, talk a little bit about, and again, this is a topic that I bring up quite a bit, that the thing that I am blown away about with regard to Northwest Arkansas is the giving spirit that exists here, the level of philanthropy, the level of, hey, I want to help you out. And as I tell people, I've really never had anyone say no to me about being on the podcast. After I've done a recording and interviewed somebody, they're always like, how can I help? What, do you want, you should talk to this person, or you need to interview that person.
I love that here. I have been an event producer, a town wrangler, a community developer my whole life.
Yeah.
And to move here and to, collaborate with so many people. I couldn't even count them on my hands and toes of how many people that we say yes to. We have been so invisible in the beginning, and now, we've kind of emerged as, we're at number 2 as the best museums.
Right.
We just got Winton Cityscapes. We're number 2. But it's incredible. I love working with House of Songs. Troy, do you want to do something with us? Or he's bringing someone in that would work. Or Runway, that just, it's kind of making Bentonville a young Austin with the murals and everything.
Right.
They came up and supported us to have that incredible mural that was painted on the side of the building. You don't even know how many times people say, we've driven our kids to school and we've never been in there. And it's like, well, you will now, because it's just like, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful out there. But I love it. It's a dream come true to be able to pick up the horn and call someone and they take your call and we figure out how we work together.
Yeah. Well, so tell me, because we are in the area that we're in, like you said, there are 39 nations represented in this grander area. What has it meant for you guys to be stewards of this collection and interact with the different representations of these nations that still exist and can trace their lineage back to a lot of the things that are part of your collection? Yeah. And what is that like?
It's an honor, number one, but you have to earn it. And we've grown it organically.
Yeah.
Just adding the element of the present where we connect with, just bringing in we had an opening ceremony during the Native American Cultural Celebration in October. And we honor the First Nations of Arkansas, which is the Quapaw, the Caddo, and the Osage. And to have the principal chiefs of the Osage Nation, of former Jim Gray and former principal chief Jim Bird of the Cherokee Nation, even though Cherokee were not original, they did pass through here on the way to Tahlequah and did have a settlement. And to have J.R. Matthews as a former chairman of the Quapaw Nation, it is such an honor. And they become our family.
Yeah.
And I can rely on them to, help us navigate. And we try to build on small successes. So what we've done is that, when people come in, there's a real warmth and you become part of our family. And that parlays into, Bunkie Echohawk, telling other people it's a great place to come. It parlays into Stephen Paul Judd and Wes Studi saying it was one of the best cultural celebrations he ever was a part of.
Wow.
Because it wasn't just a powwow. It wasn't just selling, art. It was, he said the caliber of the presenters was extraordinary. And they were. I see so many doors open to us, and to be able to navigate and go through them, and the equation of time, energy, money is something. But a couple of years ago, I went home and my husband had on the World Channel, and there's this young man, Chutez Cop Martinez. I thought, who is this kid? Mm-hmm. He's 17 years old. He's addressed the United Nations twice. He wrote a book at 17. His family created Earth Guardians have gone around the world, and I see him standing next to Greta Thunberg. He is recording with Quincy Jones, he's actually a pretty good hip hop artist.
Yeah.
And so,
you're doing all kind of name dropping here, which is great. I love that.
Well, I don't mean to. It drives me crazy when people do.
It's great.
But what happened just by going through that door and calling his mother.
Yeah.
It has turned us into where he had a good experience. And now Macy, our youngest, who is Cherokee, is an earth guardian. And so that's when we're talking about the new medicine garden we've created. We're in solidarity with the Day of Action that went around the world.
Right.
And so we were doing it here in Bentonville too. And so that is parlayed into, opening that door because, again, right now with our youth, it is so important for me to ask the question, why does this story we tell matter to them? You know, when you've got so many devices, you're so freaking privileged around here. And I, feel like just going to every school and you must come and experience people like Shootez Scott-Martinez.
Now, so speaking of which, do you go visit schools?
Yes. We don't. We're too small to open that door.
Right.
We prefer them to come to us. But if there is like a big event, we try to collaborate with them. So during the Native American Cultural Celebration, we brought in Joseph Bruchac.
Okay.
He's the most extraordinary storyteller. So he's New York Times bestselling artist. So he's telling a story to over 250 students. They have sketchbooks, they're drawing. And also it ties into Wes Studi getting an Academy Award. They're sketching and they'll parlay those sketches into graphic novels or storyboarding for a short film.
Wow. Okay.
So we can do that. But I also had, we have to be really crafty who we send out. So we sent out Sam Chinta, who is just an extraordinary person with Fulcrum Press, which is one of the premier publishing companies for American Indian writers. And so Sam actually, was my ambassador. Not only was he selling books and we, bringing in other authors, he went, and so he's writing a lesson plan that comes off of that experience with Joseph Bruchac. And also Arkansas Arts Academy came to us and experienced Joseph also.
Yeah.
So it's really hard right now because we're a small staff to, say, oh yeah, we'll show up at your place. But we try to find a way to help.
Well, so speaking of which, given the size of your staff and everything, do you take volunteers?
We do.
You do?
We do, and interns.
Yes. Okay. So there's plenty of work to do, and there's plenty of opportunities to do that work.
There is. And usually it's a limited amount, especially for events. We need volunteers. I mean, during the Native American Cultural Celebration. And then 3 weeks later, we did Bentonville Dia de los Muertos. Mm-hmm. We need volunteers for that because we couldn't believe the success of Bentonville Dia de los Muertos. I mean, for us, having 1,300 people come through those doors was like, oh my goodness.
All in one day?
Yes, sir.
Wow. That's a lot. Is there a way for people through the website to connect with that information? Is that usually readily apparent when you need volunteers?
Pick up the horn. Yeah. You can go but I always like the phone call.
Yeah.
I'm an auditory
I am too.
Yeah.
I am too. And that's why I reached out to you. And that's also why I sent the email as well.
Because someone could open your email and it might go through the cracks. So it's always best to back it up with a phone call with me.
Yeah, which works out. Yeah. And the website is mona.us. That's MONAH.us, which stands for Museum of Native American History. So what's next for you guys? I mean, where are you hoping? What are some of your bigger goals and plans for this museum and for the impact that you'd like to see it have on this community?
Well, again, what happened this year, and again, we are a small museum that is private collection, but thanks to extraordinary Walton Family Foundation, because I have no advertising budget. We have built this really by being newsworthy, word of mouth, just incredible, but it gave us a programming grant. We don't look for, we're not a museum that looks to the state. David wants to, navigate this journey.
Yeah.
And so, but programming, yes, we definitely, it helps us bring extraordinary people that we couldn't afford to do it. I couldn't bring in Wes Studi by myself. And so, but their generosity and support of us, they have funded us for 12 months. And a big chunk of that went to the Native American Cultural Celebration. But once a month, we do Creative Visions. And that was created by Macy Henley, who is, again, our youngest. And she came up with this idea to bring different Indigenous artists once a month that teaches a traditional art form and up to 50 people can learn beside them. But it's not that you're going to leave with a double-walled basket.
Right.
You're learning the tradition and history behind it. That's what's really important for us. I want to incorporate, and also we do Native conversations once a month. And that could be an author event, where we brought, last year we brought in the Crazy Horse family, and that you couldn't even get into the place. It was so extraordinary. In fact, on the winter count, one of Floyd Clown Sr.'s relations from the Crazy Horse family is one of those glyphs.
Really?
Yes, it says Lonehorn had his leg killed. Well, Lonehorn had his leg broken in a bison hunt, but his heart was broken because he had lost his wife and child. So this is a whole thing that you expand from those little glyphs, and you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, you understood what it was like to be sitting there hearing an elder tell these stories at winter. It was extraordinary.
Did you guys videotape that?
We need a videographer really bad.
Okay, big shout out.
It's a blur. Yeah, please call us. I would like to write that, and hopefully they'll, see us worthy of the next future grant, and I would like to have a videographer. But what we want to add this coming year, we do story time for children once a month. It's the second Saturday. But what I would like to do is once a month, we bring in a different storyteller from a different nation.
Okay.
So you're not just hearing a story of the little fuzzy chipmunk. You're also knowing a little bit more about the history, of the Laguna Nation. You're learning a little bit more about the tradition and the oral history behind that.
Yeah.
But they would do storytime with children, but then there would be another presentation later in the day for all ages.
Okay.
So that's my next thing. So it'd be 12 months of storytellers. And we have some of the best in the whole world that are coming through there already. Our friends of our family, like Gail Ross, who's a direct descendant of Chief John Ross.
Okay.
I mean, she has done storytelling at the White House. She's done storytelling on, all over the place. So that's a new feature I think people will really like.
And I got to say, I was really impressed with the gift shop too. The gift shop, I mean...
Thanks for noticing.
Yeah, the gift shop is... I mean, you have some high-quality items
We really
in there.
do.
Yeah,
I'm a major donor. I just bought this bracelet. I had a store for 20 years.
Okay.
In Seattle called Glamorama.
Okay.
And
I love the name.
Yeah, I figured 20 years is enough. And I just was ready to start the new chapter of my life. And then for David... he shouldered this for the first 8 years. And so what we've been doing is increasing the people that come through, even though admission's free, if you want to leave a donation for your visit, it's always appreciated. But the gift shop pays our salaries and also pays for, other things going on in the museum. And it's an honor to do this with such purpose.
Yeah.
It's one thing I always thought, I've always been an event producer. I thought selling things is not enough on this planet. And so to be able to do something that supports such a grand thing, and also to bring different indigenous artists in, that you're getting, it's supporting an artist or a hospital in Guatemala, and there's also some silly things that have nothing to do with Native American history at all. But
it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, listen, as soon as I walked in, I had pulled out my wallet because at first I was like, oh man, I didn't ask my son's teacher how much it was costing to get in. And I was like, then they were like, oh no, it's free. I was like, free? And I had no idea. So there is no excuse for people not to come and visit and partake in all that you have to offer.
And what's really cool now is people are just pushing past us and going shopping.
Yeah. So,
I know I am.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I walked in thinking I'm going to be out of this museum. Someone brought me in and saying they really need someone to help promote it and all that. And I thought, okay, I'll be here about 25 minutes. And so I think it's going on 8 years later.
Yeah. And you never left.
I never left.
You never left. So, well, man, I love hearing this story. And there's just so many anecdotes that I think play a part into the success that you guys are experiencing here with the museum and also what's to come. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for you to continue to grow. And I certainly think with the giving spirit of this area, there will be no shortage of people willing to lend a hand and to help out. And
that's what's so great about the events too, is that it gives us a return on the visitor. A lot of times if you went through, well, we saw it. But by bringing in, monthly, we're starting to see people like 12 times a year, or your Aunt Maud came into town and you want to, share, it's people feel like family that come in that door.
Right. No, I love that. I certainly am going to, when my mother comes to town, because she loves museums, I've taken her to Crystal Bridges. That was the funny thing. She's coming from, she lived right outside of New York City for many years. And, she's been all over the world and been to the Louvre, and she saw Crystal Bridges, and it just blew her mind.
It's such a great setting. I mean, it's just beautiful over there.
So I love that. And I'm going to certainly bring her here when she comes to visit in a few months. And I think I'm going to bring the family back for another trip, because I'd like to just sit down with that winter count. And
when on the other side is the Washasha winter count that's on muslin cloth.
Okay.
And no one lives that long, but the keeper always has apprentices. And that one's been in Tribal Art magazine, and it's extraordinary also.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to take advantage of that. Those of you that are listening to this podcast, you have to see this winter count. I don't know if I have a picture of it. Do I need permission to show it?
No.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a picture of this winter count so you understand what I'm talking about on the show notes for this particular episode of the podcast. And as well as a couple of other choice photos that I've taken that I think you would really like. And certainly we'll have a link to the website. So those of you that have not been here before, it's really easy to get to. You're about 5 minutes from the square in Bentonville, right down the street from one of my favorite restaurants, The Preacher's Son. And so there's a lot that's right in this area. Yeah. It's actually really easy to get to.
I always tell people when they're on Highway 49 and you're coming this way, it's central. It's literally central. It takes you all the way to the museum. And so once you go past the downtown and Walton Boulevard, we're the first teepee on the left.
There you go. I love that. And there's legitimately a teepee out there.
There's one other thing I'll tell you. All kids that come here, we out by the teepee, we put arrowheads out there. So they get to go, they all get a free arrowhead when they visit us.
Yeah.
But we're getting ready to get in 2020 a sand pit. And so you'll be able to excavate a cast of a dire wolf skeleton.
Oh, man. That's going to be interesting.
Is this place cool or what?
It is. It's beyond cool. Yeah. My son went out there with a couple of his friends, and they were just, they were throwing rocks around and not to hurt anybody, but just moving them around, trying to find the arrowheads, which I thought were really cool. And he found 2 really nice arrowheads.
Yeah.
And
they're all hand napped. They're just modern.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think that's really cool.
But that, again, plants a seed. It plants a seed. And that's an art form in itself. I mean, we have one of the largest prehistoric tool collections, period.
Yeah.
And, there's the holy grail of nappers, the Sweetwater biface when they come in. I mean, it's so thin with all the technology today. You cannot make something that thin. And the pottery is extraordinary. I mean, like the Quapaw pottery and the Caddo pottery. I mean, it's just, there's clothing. I mean, it's just a little bit of everything. And especially when those kids come in, like the Arkansas Arts Academy, where you came in with them. It's like, I try to instill that each one of you has a very special gift, to survive and thrive. And, some of you are going to resonate towards the bows and arrow. You're the hunters for the Arkansas Arts Academy tribe. Some of you, you may be the medicine woman. Look at the medicine trunk we have. Some of you are the artisans that are creating this pottery, and just to, fall through time, again. And it's just, again, my honor to talk to you today.
Yeah, no, well, I appreciate that. So we've got I'll put all the contact information. You guys are based at 202 Southwest O Street in Bentonville, 72712, just for those that are listening on the fly. As we close, I'd love for you to just share your thoughts, especially for somebody listening, because I always try to consider who my audience is. And of course, we have a lot of people here that I'm exposing new information to. But then also there might be somebody listening that's thinking about coming to Northwest Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Give me your short Cliff Note version of why they should seriously consider coming here. It might be for Walmart. It might be for J.B. Honor Tyson. Might be for one of the vendors that serve Walmart, or it might be for some other reason. But what would your why be?
Why should they come to the museum or Northwest Arkansas?
Yeah. Well, my thing is if they come to Northwest Arkansas, eventually they're going to make it to the museum.
Well, first of all, after you listen to this extraordinary podcast, why would you not?
Right. Thank you.
But from USA Today, this little museum that could, we are the top 3 attractions in Arkansas.
I know.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's really great.
That is great.
And also we're fun.
Yeah.
History is fun.
Yeah.
History is exciting stuff.
Well, when you're not moving and shaking inside and outside the museum, what do you like to do here in Northwest Arkansas?
I live in Hobbitland, and my husband is extraordinary artist, James Yale, and he had the good sense to build a home on the lake over in Rogers. Okay. And I'm just a big old homebody. I give everything I've got to the museum, and then I kind of sashay on home and
do your thing.
My friends and family are my gold. I mean, I just, it's
as it should be.
When I get home, I mean, I just want to have free range conversations and garden and I just think it's so beautiful here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Favorite restaurant?
My favorite restaurant? Oh my goodness.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, you're not. Actually, I mean, over in Rogers, there is a restaurant called Havana.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I just love that place so much. And it's right by close to where I live.
And they actually have a lot of gluten-free items on the menu.
They really do.
They do.
I'm just saying you should go to Havana. I just think it's pretty fabulous. But the reason why you should come here is that I do not feel I want to tell you one thing. When we did our first Native American Cultural Celebration, and I met the fabulous Bobby Bridger, who's a direct descendant of Jim Bridger. He's the one that started the cultural celebration with me. And we did it. Again, I'm talking about you got to pay attention when these doors of opportunity open to all of us, and you've got to know when to go through them. And so we did this during the time of Standing Rock. And he got the John Neihardt Ward Cinder Award, who wrote Black Elk Speaks. And I read Black Elk Speaks when I was a very young woman. And then I read it again right before the event. And Black Elk was this 11-year-old boy who became this powerful medicine man and warrior. He had this vision that the hoops of the nation would be broken. And they were with Wounded Knee. Your heart was on the ground. But his vision went farther and farther and farther. We saw the tree of life growing again and the hoops of the nation of all the earth coming together. Yeah. And when we did that event, that's when 200 nations that might not have been so friendly with each other through time, where indigenous and non-indigenous people stood up to protect this earth.
Yeah.
And I thought I run on that vision that I feel like it's important that we create a museum of understanding, because how is this earth and this world going to be healthy unless we explore these stories and unearth these facts.
Absolutely.
And we bow and honor what has happened in the past. And we meet each other with the eyes of a child to let each other's story unfold.
Yeah. And that's a key point. I mean, you bring up the eyes. I mean, the eyes are the window to the soul, right?
They are. So get your face out of your phone.
so look at people when you talk to them and you'd be surprised what you might learn. So, well, Charlotte Buchanan-Yale, I count this a pleasure to just sit down with you for a few minutes. It's true what they say that you are the company you keep.
Yep.
And I'm certainly appreciative of you spending a little bit of time with me and enlightening me to all that you're doing and the things that you're passionate about and why Northwest Arkansas is so special. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, welcome to our family.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the Museum of Native American History. You cannot miss this place. You have to come and check it out. You have to come check out the teepee. Bring your kids, bring your grandkids, bring your grandkids' friends and your kids' friends, bring your friends. Just come down here and see Charlotte Buchanan-Yale and the rest of her amazing team here at the museum. You will not be disappointed. And do me a favor, when you do come down and visit, tell them that you heard about it first here on the podcast, I Am Northwest Arkansas. I would really appreciate that more than anything else. And as you know, our podcast is available wherever great podcasts can be found. Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Pandora, iHeartRadio, you name it. I Am Northwest Arkansas is there. So we would appreciate you just checking us out, sharing us with a friend if you like this podcast. And remember, no two episodes are the same. So we really want to encourage you to be a part of the I Am Northwest Arkansas family and partake in all the great things that are happening. And if you're thinking about moving here, just do it. And if you're seriously not sure, reach out to me via email. All my information is on the website, and I'll get on the phone with you and tell you why you should come to Northwest Arkansas. I don't care who you are. I got an answer for you. So that's all I have for today. We really appreciate you listening to this episode. And as usual, our episodes come out every Monday at noon. So we will see you next week. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week. on I Am Northwest Arkansas.